Hey everyone, Corey from Aquarium Co-op, back in the hot seat talking Livebearers today. First, let me start by saying all hail the Taco King. I got my rad new hat that is awkward. It kind of shimmies from side to side, but it comes complete with, let's see here, lettuce. We've got cheese, that's what the orange is here obviously, and ground beef. So, luckily, I got this sent to me by Big Fly Multimedia, which is kind of awesome because I was already watching his videos. He did a response video to my underground filter video, so if you haven't checked that out, go check it out. I'll put a link at the end of this thing. God, I'm hitting my taco here. I'll put an end at the link or at the end so you guys can check out his channel. So, but he was nice enough to send me this cool hat. I have no idea where he got it from. And I think it looks best like this because, you know, as he said, it could also be a mohawk type of hat, but I think as a mohawk, it doesn't do itself justice, you know? So I like the let's see if I can get this, like the Napoleon look here. So we'll rock this for a little bit and, you know, we'll get into it. Let's see. So we've got some sales going on. Online, we've got rocks and wood, 20% off. We did that for the in-store customers, and I know you guys had that like last weekend, but they didn't have it, and I thought, what the heck, let's give it to you guys again, because it was a click of a button, it was already set up, basically. And then for the first time ever, and I forgot to do this, my giant hat's blocking it, but I was able to get a discount on Sarah Onip tabs. So all the Onip tabs and the Spirulina tabs are 14% off on the website. That's as much as I could negotiate there. So, you know, while that doesn't seem like huge, it's only 14%. At the same time, I've never been able to really put these on discount ever. So that's a cool thing. And yeah, so if you don't know what they are, the little tablets I always stick on the aquarium behind me. And it looks like I have no goldfish because my taco hat's in the way, but eventually you get to look at them. So, you know, go and buy those if you're on the fence. Go ahead and grab some. But let's see, I know there was some Livebearer questions here, and, you know, the crowd goes wild with the taco hat, so gotta go back there. Do me a favor, go ahead and like and share this out. Let's see how many people we can get to today. While I'm finding questions here mixed in. I gotta mute myself here on my computer. There's all these things. All right. So, I know there is no sour cream. It's a shame, but you know, maybe I can doctor up the hat with some kind of sour cream. I don't know yet. I need foam sour cream. Oh, it's sealed though. There's no room. You know, who knows? But anyway, let's see here if I can find. That doesn't have to do with Livebearers. Looking. Guppies and Mollies can't breed, but I'm assuming both Cobra and Fancy Guppies can breed. So Guppies and Mollies actually can crossbreed. They create what's called a muppy or a golly, and to the best of my knowledge, they're always sterile. So no one's been able to like keep that line going. Otherwise, they'd be around. But you know, yeah, that was the first one. So now I can scroll down and I can find where questions actually start and not taco talk here. I should do a live stream one time that's only about tacos. This question revolves around Livebearers, at least I think so. How do you treat Camelinus redworm? And the reason why I think it goes with Livebearers is it seems to be very, very prevalent in Livebearers. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it other than, you know, it's everywhere. Like a lot of times when I'm ordering off Aquabid and things like that, they come in with it. So how I treat it is I use Levamisol, which I can get from Greg Sage at Select Aquatics. And I always order it from him because he can get it fresh, which that's an important part is it can't be stored outside of the right temperatures. And then at the same time, if you order like some random site online, it could be old already. And so it's, you know, you want it fresh, you want it to work, and you want to get the directions with it, that type of thing. So I always order it from Greg Sage whenever I need it. Not that I need it that often because a little bit goes a very long way. And you know, usually you do something you agree with, like, okay, I'm going to dose it 2 or 3 times, and so you might dose it for like 2 days, give it a week, dose it again to get any of the larvae that couldn't have been attacked with the med that way, and then maybe a 3rd time to really be sure. I've heard reports that flubendazole will also work. I just always have gone with levamisole, and it's that classic. Once I find something that does work, then I don't go try other things, because I already have a working method, and we're working with live animals, so I try not to mess around too much with that. Let's see. Livebearers are underestimated as a species? I think so. A lot of people in my store will kind of poo-poo livebearers, going, oh, those are beginner fish and stuff like that, but, you know, or they'll say, like, everyone has those, and to me, it's like, yeah, everyone has one because they're amazing, you know? It's the same reason why I might own, well, we do own a Toyota Camry. It's like, well, everyone owns a Toyota Camry. I don't want one. It's the opposite. Everyone owns a Toyota Camry because they love them. And so, I want one too. Don't get me wrong, it's super old, but that's because they last forever, right? Just like your livebearers are. Your livebearers are going to breed forever for you. They don't live that long, but they will do well. Let's see. What's the best way to breed minnows outside? Well, that's not a livebearer. But if you were going to do like guppies, which would be similar process, lots of floating plants. So maybe use water hyacinth, water lettuce. You could use hornwort, something like that. Get a sponge filter going in there. Through my testing, I did find it was important that they have some kind of circulation in there. The fish just didn't do as well without it, even though it might have been 100 gallons, only 3 fish. It made a big difference. So I use a sponge filter, and don't use a power head or something like that. It tends to suck up the fry, especially egg scatters like you're wanting to do. And then what I always do is I just feed very fine powder food, and that feeds all the babies. And anything that's larger, like let's say the adult fish, they can kind of eat the bugs that are falling into the pond. So that's the way I do it. Let's see. Is it true that longfin, swordtails, and platies can't breed? If so, then how do they breed a longfin strain? Well, that's partially true. So basically, I gotta take this hat off. Like, it's so big that it like wobbles, and my neck is being weird. So hopefully I don't have the worst hair ever. But we'll set the taco hat off to the side for now. But back to swordtails and platies. So it's sort of true that you can't breed the longfin ones. What actually it is, you can't breed 2 longfins together. So you can't breed a longfin male and a longfin female. When you breed them together, it's what's called a lethal gene. And so all the fry basically come out sterile or not at all. Or not sterile, stillborn is what I meant to say. Or not at all. Like they'll get reabsorbed in the female. So what you have to do, and this is why longfin swordtails and platy or high-fin platies and plumetail and all these genes aren't super popular in the hobby, or at least out there for you to buy, is because you have to mix a standard fin and a long fin. And typically you're going to use longfin or high-fin females and normal males, because like on swordtails, especially with the leader tail gene and some of the high-fin genes, if they get the elongated gonopodium, their reproductive appendage, it can't be used to get the female pregnant because it doesn't work right. And so, yeah. So basically, what happens, you gotta get Punnett squares and stuff like that. But basically, you're gonna take a normal, you're gonna take a high fin or a long fin, you breed those together, and what comes out is you're gonna get like 25% standard. You're gonna get like 25% high fin. 25% like just other stuff, and then like another 25% of like, I'm not explaining it right, but like let's say male traits. So you might, like if we had a black male swordtail, and then you had a red female high fin, and you bred those together, you're gonna get like kind of a mix. Then you'll get long finned mix. Then you'll get just blacks, and then you'll also get like just reds out of that. And you'll get some other stuff too, but that's a very basic breakdown of it. Let's see here. Am I officially sponsored? No. That was Big Fly Multimedia sending me a rad hat. I have no idea where he got it, but I'm more interested to know, actually, did he already own that hat, or did he see that and be like, I know the use for that? Let's see. I'm finding my swordtails are jumping a lot out of breeding traps. Are they known to be quite jumpy? Not really. In my experience, though, breeding traps have been bad for me. and I've tried lots of, I've DIY'd my own. I bought expensive, fancy, like acrylic ones that were made. In general, I find confining the females, which normally I'm confining a female, to be very stressful on them. And a lot of times I'll actually lose them. They'll die, or they'll abort, you know, so they'll actually absorb the fry because it's so stressful. So that's why in my fish room you see me only breed live bearers pretty much in a couple of situations. Either A, the jungle tank look, which that's my preferred method, just let them colony breed. Or B, I set up like an additional tank with just a female, or like you saw that breeding trap cage, where it's big enough where it's like half of a 20-gallon tank for them and they can still feel comfortable. But, you know, something that's like this big and you've got a 4-inch swordtail in there, I just don't feel like they're comfortable in it. And I think that's where the problem comes from. My guppy fry are about a month old, and I'm not sure if they're developing color, but some of them have the black dots on their tail. Yeah, that, like, I've got some fry that, you know, are probably 2.5, 3 months old, and, like, they're just really starting to color up. And some strains take longer than others, too, so depends on a strain you got going there. There is something different today. Oh yeah, it might be the hat. Let's scroll down here. Fish in a corner says, I have 12 10-gallon tanks that are empty. I want to breed guppies, mollies, and endlers. 4 tanks each. What is the best way to do each? Like 4 tanks colony breeding or select breeding and grow out? So if you're only going to use 3 strains, which that means you had like, let's say red guppies and Volifera mollies and blue Silverado endlers, you might breed up a colony of them. And so let's say you started with 3 and now you've got 50. Take your best 10, like 2 males, 8 females, start the next 10-gallon, and keep going until you've kind of got a really good strain. Otherwise, you could just do each tank its own type. If you find a gene that you really like let's say, for instance, one of your mollies comes out and he's just better. I say he because usually we're judging by the males, but I actually look at females a lot. Let's say he or she is just better than you normally see. You could isolate that out and start working with that gene and go, oh, it's got a bigger body, or maybe it's got a bigger dorsal fin, or something like that. So I would set up personally like 3 tanks, and then just breed them for a while and see, is there something I like out of here that I want to improve, or is it that I just want to keep more strains? I typically just keep more strains, unless I stumbled upon something really special. You know, if I was like, wow, you know, this, like for a while we had some tiger endlers that were producing a lot of kind of red dots on them, and we worked on that for a little while. That was fun. But I don't think you're going to get much out of having 12 tanks, but 4 tanks each fish, unless you're really wanting to work with something special. And the other thing I would probably have a mention there is that for the mollies, unless I was playing with balloon mollies, I feel like a 10-gallon is going to be kind of hard. Because once those mollies start pushing 3 to 4 inches like they should, they get a little aggressive in confined spaces in my experience. Let's see. Are there true freshwater swordtails? Yes. I'm actually trying to think of if I can think of brackish water ones. But yes, they should all be true freshwater that I can think of. Definitely. I mean, you can go collect them in Mexico and things like that. So Joel's trap is a 2-gallon thing with a chute for the fry. Yeah, let me go grab mine. If it's right on the other side of this door, I'll grab it. If not, it's 30 seconds wasted. I'll show you the ones that I bought, and they didn't work well either. Well, that's not going to work because they're in all of my old Metaframe tanks that are hidden in the killifish closet that doesn't have any killifish in it. But there's a door in the way and stuff like that, so can't get to it. But that thing was an elaborate acrylic thing that was made with the kind of the cone-shaped bottom and made bigger and everything, but I still had lots of trouble. No matter, even if I put guppy fry in there, I did not get as good as results as if I put them in their own tank or built my own breeding traps the way I use them. So I stopped using them, even though they were expensive, and in theory they should have worked really well. They just, theory and then in practice didn't meet up for me. So, are mollies considered aggressive? They keep bullying my koi. Yeah, I think they are. So, if you had to ask me, of Livebearers, who are the aggressive ones, I would tell you Swordtails and Mollies tend to be much more aggressive than Guppies and Platies, in my experience. So that's half the reason I don't even work with Swordtails. There's another reason I don't work with Swordtails either, but I do like Mollies, and not all Mollies are aggressive. There's a lot of different types of Mollies. Some are real colorful, some aren't at all. Some get really big, and I think that's part of what it is. I think it's not so much that is a guppy less aggressive than a molly, or is it the fact that a guppy gets this big and like Charles Clapsaddle can get mollies that are like 5.5 inches with bodies that big around? Which, talking about Livebearers, by the way, if you guys aren't already checking out Charles Clapsaddle's stuff, which he is Goliad Farms down in Texas, that guy makes some of the best mollies. Well, I won't say some. He's won like every competition for like the last 20 years straight on mollies at the Livebearer convention. So, speaking of which, I'll be going to that Livebearer convention. I forgot all the details already, but I'm 99% sure it's in April, and I believe it is in St. Louis, I think. But I'm going to go there, so if you guys are going, we'll meet up and we'll do something. But, yeah. Skull Gamer says, I can't breed my guppies. How do I do it? Mostly set up the environment. This is how I breed all the fish. So I don't breed fish. I set up the environment and they breed themselves. So we know that fish will eat baby fish, so we need to give lots of hiding spots. In general, let's not stress them out. So I don't do big water changes. Make sure pH is high enough. That's a problem a lot of people run into. Make sure you actually got some healthy stock. It's pretty common to have bacterial infections or microscopic parasites like Costia, just from buying guppies from a chain store, even mom and pop stores. The problem with guppies are they're kept in such confined spaces at wholesalers and even stores. Like mine are more packed than probably a lot of my other tanks that have a Pistos or Angels or something like that. That they're just, it's kind of like getting on a plane. You get on the plane and you're with all the other people, you're much more likely to come home with a cold. And I think that's a lot of the problem people run into is their fish are just plagued by something. So that's why I'm always quarantining fish and putting meds to them before I start working with them. And then just a decent food. So it really should be very basic. And I realize that's the most frustrating thing you ever hear when you're having trouble with something is when you go, it's not working for me. And the person says, well, it's easy. Obviously it's not easy if you're having trouble with it. But the reality is, if you have a safe, comfortable environment, decent water quality, and you feed any decent kind of food, they should be able to reproduce. I can think of another problem. Sometimes so first of all, if you're mixing with other fish, like let's say you had some black skirt tetras and some guppies, you'll probably never see fry because the black skirts will eat all the guppy fry before you ever get to see them. So they might be giving birth, but they're getting eaten. The other thing I find people run into all the time is that their filters are eating it. So that's why I use a lot of sponge filters, and I'm trying out under gravel. But with hang-on backs, and even like behind here where those goldfish are, on the intake there's a big intake sponge. And here's like a small one. But you don't want your fry, because they're so small that a little current just starts carrying them, and eventually they just go whoop, and they die. So you want to make sure that you've made an environment that can actually keep baby fish alive. And a lot of times, the more gunk you have, the more algae, the more mulm, all these little things, like you'd look at the bottom of a river, that helps. And so other things you could do, like let's say you did have predators in the tank, like you had some barbs, cherry barbs would do it, but I'm trying, like some Odessa barbs or something that's like kind of aggressive. You could make a big pile of rocks where the fry could dart into that the Odessas couldn't get into. That could help. My guppy gave birth. What should I do? Probably nothing. Like, we just kind of touched on what you would do to set up the right environment. Probably just making sure that a little bit of small food gets in there, but otherwise I wouldn't change much. And you guys kind of been following that probably on the daily dose, that type of thing. And then the fish room updates, like on the Cyprichromis I have, which I realize they're not a livebearer, they're a mouse brooder. But I could have easily just taken them out, taken the fry out of their mouth, and save the babies. But I'm not interested in doing that. So what I do is I change the environment until they start making it. And what it took was I just needed to feed more small foods, and the auto feeder solved that for me. But that's how I approach it too. If you have a batch of babies in the tank and they don't make it, what can I change about the tank to make them make it? Instead of, like, you know, one answer is, yeah, net out every one with a tiny little net and put it in its own tank. That works too. You know, and I've done that, and I'll do that from time to time on a new strain that I'm really excited about that I don't want to lose or something. But in general, I like setting up the environment and then seeing what the fish do in the thing that I made. Let's see. Does your fry food feed guppy fry? Also, how do you feed your freeze-dried bloodworms to guppies? Thank you. Will common plecos eat guppy fry? Alright, so there's a couple of them there. The fry food, does it feed guppies? Yes, that's why I primarily use it. I'm a livebearer guy, and I end up... Well, in my prime, I get going with a lot of livebearer tanks, right? So I got to feed a lot of tanks, and like, let's say the gentleman that wants to set up 12 10 gallons. The squeezy bottle works great, because you just kind of go squeeze, 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 squeeze down the line, and you get that taken care of. So it works amazing. It was kind of developed to do that, yeah. And then freeze-dried bloodworms to guppies, as long as they're the adult guppies, they just float on top of the water and they chow them down. So I use those as well from time to time. And then, will common plecos eat guppy fry? I would say unlikely. I'm not going to say it won't happen. They'd really have to be hungry. But in general, plecos aren't really geared to be eating fry. They're geared to eat eggs, but since livebearers, you don't really have that problem. South 2 Razor says, what temp for platies? It depends. If they're true platies, I would say between 72 and 80, anywhere in there. If you're working with some of the variatus platies, they can go much cooler. I've kept them down in the 50s before. Which that's not true. I've got 2 strains of platies out there now. But the Sunset Variatus that I keep, which I need to go buy males, but I kind of want to do a I'm taking a trip to PetSmart, let me show you what it's like video. We'll see if I ever do that. But those guys can go down in the 50s. I've kept them down into the 40s. And at about 42, I lost most of them because I usually try to bring them out each year and get them colder and colder and colder. But yes, they can go decently cold. I haven't mentioned anything about people selling fish that have been fed hormones so they won't breed. I've actually never run into that in the livebearer world. It's a common practice in, African cichlids and things like that. And I'm actually not even convinced they feed them hormones so they won't breed. They're just feeding them hormones to color them up early. But I personally have never run into that, and I've touched... I don't even know how many livebearers, when you start looking at between the store and myself, I've never once found a strain of guppy or livebearer or something like that I couldn't breed. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, but, maybe it's just where I buy from. I don't go for cheap, but even then, I'm not sure I've ever run into it. I've run into lots of people that say they couldn't breed something, and then I get a hold of it and I breed it no problem. In livebearer world, But yeah, I haven't run into that. So that's why I guess I don't talk about it, is I try not to talk about things I haven't run into. And it could totally happen. What do they call it? White crane is what they use, the food to color up peacocks and stuff like that. It's a white crane food, and it can make female peacocks even look like males. There's so much hormones in there. But I think with livebearers, the problem is they grow so fast and they color up so easy that I don't think anyone's wasting the money on the hormone food. Guess some people might run into problems where, swordtails, the reason I don't breed them is they take so long to sex out that you could have a tank of 100 fry, they're all 4 inches long, and you've got one male. You catch that male out, and then one more male pops up, and that keeps going, so it makes them not profitable for me to sell. But I haven't run into that problem myself, and you know, even with the big farms I buy from, most times they don't send enough males, and if they were using some hormones, they would be sending more males than anything else. So, let's see here. Do questions get answered later still? Probably. I mean, we'll probably grab some, you know, some 911 questions at the end. Let's see here. Right now, we're kind of only doing Livebearer, guys, so there's a lot of questions not with Livebearers at the moment. Cichlid Addicted says, I have a 100-gallon cube tank with guppies and 3 angelfish. Can the guppies outbreed the predation of angels and populate? In my experience, they can. You know, it will matter a lot on how you set the tank up. If you've got that pile of rocks or really dense plants that the angels can't get into, they'll do great. If not, they won't. And so what you got to think about is think about nature. How do things like guppies and stuff like that make it in nature when there's predators all around? Same thing. The babies hide out where they can't be gotten. And it's the same reason why I can have like shrimp and some snails and stuff in Murphy's tank at the store, is because I've got some of that guppy grass and it's so dense back there that he can't go in. And so anything that lives back in there is free to breed. What is my opinion on breeder boxes or nursery tanks for molly fry? I think they work out okay. I just always set up the tank as a species tank, and I always want it so they can raise their own fry in there. You know, I'm more likely to use a breeder box for like an African cichlid or something like that, ready to pull babies. I guess the reason I don't like breeder boxes is I find I can't grow the fish nearly as fast in a breeder box than I can in the tank, because in theory you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm feeding them 5 times a day, but in the tank they're probably eating all day long. So even though you're feeding them 5 times a day, they literally are eating 10 hours a day when you have the lights on, and then maybe an hour on each side without the lights on too. So I just find that they grow much faster and better not in the breeder box. And a lot of people, I think, have run into that, where they catch out most of them and they're in the box and they go, wait a second, they're growing way faster here in my breeder box. So, you know, the other thing is I like to feed the whole tank. So if I put a, you know, an ONIP tab in there, 14% off, shameless plug, today, not today only, today and tomorrow only, I think. That way you can feed the adults and the babies, instead of like, oh, I got to put a little bit in here and then I got to put some over there. But again, I run so many tanks that I don't really have time to do that either. So it's, you know, a little bit different for me. 400 people are watching. Turns out people like Livebearers, just like me. Let's see. Brian's opinion says, Corey, do you find if you separate the male and the female guppies, you get nicer males? The answer to that is, I've never done it. Which seems insane, right? Because I love them and I breed lots of Livebearers. I've never run that test. You know, I think the problem is I've never been at a point in my life where I had enough time to do that. And I'm not saying that, oh, you've got enough time to do that, but I'm all in or all out. So either I'm running a lot of tanks and working at a store, or I'm running none. And that's pretty much always been the way. So before I got into it, I had no fish tanks. Within a year of getting into it, I'm working at a store / running a fish room of 50 tanks. You know, I mean, it might have taken a little bit longer than that to have 50 tanks, but, you know, full in. And then, you know, like when I went down in size while we were buying a house and stuff like that, I basically was keeping almost nothing. So I've always been at the point where I have way too many fish and not enough time. But I think you would get better males if you did separate them out. Just because I know from other fish, like convict cichlids and things like that, you grow up a nice show specimen, I do think you could raise a much better fish. That being said, is it so much better it's worth the effort? That I don't know. Can you breed color into female antler tails, fins? I've got a multi-tiger female and some yellow and black. Would like to have more. I would say definitely yes. In fact, I just ordered some guppies today. 3 different strains from Guppy Train. They're out of Oregon, and they're on Facebook. You can look up Guppy Train, like, you know, choo-choo train. And they just ordered from ATFG, and I'm just not ready to import those myself. You know, I got to buy a lot of pairs at a time to be able to do that. So I'm just buying some stuff from him, and you know, when I select, it used to be when I was newer to guppies, I would select based on the males, right? Like, ooh man, that looks like such a nice fish. Now, I pretty much judge a strain by the females. And so if you watch like Michael Sternick's video in Michael's Fish Room, the females I sent him on those, like they have huge tails, right? Like I pretty much feel like males look really good. Like most strains of guppies we can get a hold of that we're buying from a professional breeder are really good males. What really impresses me, like one of the ones I ordered was a Galaxy Half Moon, and the females literally have like a half moon tail like a betta would. So I thought they were very nice, and I want to play with those. So yes, you can pretty much take the genes of any Livebearer anywhere you want to go. The real question is, are you willing to use the time it takes? Like it might take you 7 or 8 years, and you might have this amazing thing. Which for some people, for me, if I'm breeding in a tank, and I'm just culling out what I don't like and stuff like that, and it took me 8 years, I'm fine with it. But if I had to use 12 tanks to make that happen over 8 years, it seems like too much work for me. And I'd wait for someone else to do it. Like Greg Sage, he'll make strains, and I just like buying his work. Like I have no problem supporting someone that'll spend 8 years of their life to make something that I want to enjoy. You know, that's worth it to me. Let's see. Major problem is algae? No way. That's a major boost for Livebearers. Livebearers love to snack on algae, and they love the Infusoria that live on algae too. Let's see. Hi Corey, thank you for your answer. When I go to stores, I've not seen in almost 40 years gravid female guppies. They keep the females, they keep the males and females separate, and the females are never pregnant. Yeah, that could be true, Russ. I don't keep them that way because I find that they sell way better when you keep males and females together. But all I can tell you is, like, if you walked into my store, we only sell them in the same tank. But we also have lots of locally bred ones stuff. And when I do order them from overseas, you typically order by male and female. And you're right, I don't really... they don't come pregnant, but there's a reason for that. The reason they're doing it, like on a big farm level, labor's cheap enough they can pay someone to sort them. And then two, if the guppy doesn't have to worry about making fry at all, it can focus all of its energy into growing, right? And if you're a farm, your goal is get them this big so they can be sold at a store. And if they're making babies along the way, that's actually slowing the process down. And so... yeah, I could see why that would happen, but that doesn't mean they're sterile. That just means that they haven't been introduced at that point. Any advice on keeping a strain going? My local fish store only orders males from specific strains. The females are all just generic, assorted fancy guppies. So first, Josh, probably it's not the store's fault. Like, I have the same problem, right? Most times, wholesalers can only get a hold of the males because... the farms are keeping the females, and what the big secret in the industry typically is all the males get sold to wholesalers. They'll sell to mom and pop shops, and then all those fancy females and some of the males and stuff get sold to Petcos and PetSmarts where they barely have a chance to live and won't compete with them. Because really, if you develop this gorgeous orange guppy that no one's ever seen before, the minute you sell me a boy and a girl, now I'm breeding them and I'm competing against you. So to them to keep their own farms and business, that's the way they do it. So my advice is this: either A, go to Aquabid or Guppy Train or wherever it is you're going to buy some guppies, and you could buy already like proven pairs and trios and things like that, or get your male you like and then get a female and breed them. Take the female out, raise those fry up, take one of those females, breed it back to the male, take the rest of them out. When those fry raise up, they'll be carrying enough of the genes that you could start breeding them probably 70% true. And then from then on, as you inbreed them, they will get more and more true. And, some of the people on Aquabid and stuff, they'll rate how true their fish are. So sometimes they'll go, oh, they're breeding 60% true or 92% true. And what that means is out of 100 babies, 60 will look just like mom and dad, and then 40 will go, oh, well, this is supposed to be a blue fish, and it's got a little bit of green in it, or it's got a little bit of red in it, that type of thing. So in general, something's considered set when it's kind of 90% or higher, where 9 out of 10 would come out the desired look. What's the rarest guppy strain? I don't know if there are any anymore. I think new stuff being developed, but that doesn't make it rare. Rare means that it's really hard to get, but something being developed doesn't exist yet. So I'd say the things you're least likely to see in a store at this point would be like the ribbon fin guppies. I would say the Dumbo ear or the big ear guppies. I'm trying to think of what else. Some of the ones that are rare, and the reason I think they're rare is because the average public doesn't like it, but pintail, spade tail, round tail, all those guppies, I like them quite a bit, but no one really breeds them because they're not worth anything. It's not that they're not worth anything, it's just the average public doesn't want them. And so if you've got 10 hardcore guppy nerds in the world going, those are the coolest things I've ever seen, and the general public doesn't care about them, no one's making any money, so everyone stops breeding them. I still kick myself. I had a really nice strain of German Berlin buttercups that I really loved, and they were just in a 9-gallon tank that sat next to our TV, and I always liked them because watching TV you can kind of look at it, and I was like, oh, those are nice. I ended up getting rid of them thinking, oh yeah, you can get those anytime. There's German Berlin buttercups, right? I haven't been able to find a strain nearly as nice since, and I'm on the constant lookout because I really like that fish, and that's usually what I find, at least in my hobby so far. I like I get a taste of all these fish, and then I get to the end of the buffet where I've kept so many strains, and I go, man, shouldn't have got rid of number 1, number 14, and number 26. So now I'm on a constant quest to get them back, even at 75% as good as the ones I had. And so it makes you never want to get rid of anything again. Like I want to just fully develop my collectoritis and be like, I'm never getting rid of this unless a disease takes it out and there's nothing I can do. So let's see here. Do certain water temps prove to increase male fry over female fry? Not that I've ever seen, Paul Martin. I'm not going to say it won't. I mean, I know there's definitely studies and stuff like that being done with Apistos and Crebensis and things like that. I myself have never run into that with Livebearers so far. Let's see here. Yep, Guppies can breed with Mollies. That's true. We went over that towards the beginning. How come every time you turn off your light in the guppy tank they go crazy? Probably because they're startled. In one of the Tuesday tips way back when, early in the channel, I recommend everyone having a night light in the room. Just so that, in nature there's kind of always like somewhere there's a moon providing a little bit of light. And that goes a long way in an aquarium too. So they're probably just startled, especially like if I was standing in front of my tank right behind me and I have this overhead light on like I do, and that light goes out, all of a sudden I'm making a huge shadow. I look like a big predator and they're trying to get away from me. So it can be a lot of things like that going on. What do I think about half-beak Livebearers? I think they're amazing. I still want to chase down some of Jim Langhammer, depending on, who you're talking to. His Celebes half-beaks have a red like no other. I've talked to Gary Lang, I've talked to Mike Hellwig. Everyone keeps like, oh, I think this guy's still got him. I think this guy's still got him. But I haven't found any yet of his exact strain that he did them for so long. I think the half-beak Livebearers are very, 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 very cool, but a lot of work because they'll eat their own fry, and especially the juveniles. So let's say you have 4-inch Celebes half-beaks, and then you've got some 2-inch. The 2-inch, they're really predatory on the newer fry. They're like 3/4 of an inch. So you got to have super densely planted top of the tank, and then really, those are ones you want to net the babies out whenever you see them. They're just like Bellona socks. So they call it the Pike Livebearer. Same kind of setup with those too. Let's see. Hey, I just got on here to watch. Also, what type of library could I make the most money off of in Oklahoma? Well, first, you'd have to see what was popular in Oklahoma. But I can almost guarantee you the answer will always be guppies. Just normal fancy guppies are, one of the best ways to make money. If you haven't already, watch the Breeding Fish for Profit series. It basically focuses on guppies at the beginning, and it's like a 5-part series on how you can actually turn a little bit of profit off of your fish hobby. So I would recommend that. Dustin says, can I keep apple mystery snails in my tank with guppies in their fry? Yes. In fact, I've got that going on right now. I've got mystery snails with the red Russian lace guppies that we're repopulating. How many platies do I sell a day? If I had to guess, it's less than 5. And to put that into perspective, if you said, how many guppies do you sell a day? I would say probably like 15 a day. It all depends. Like, you might have a weekend day where we sold 75 guppies and no platies. And then you might have someone coming like, wow, they bought 10 platies. But in general, so this is not Livebearer specific, but I feel like I want to do more breeding stuff, and you guys will see in the videos coming up. I'm focusing all on breeding. Ever since visiting L.R. Brett's Aquatics Fish Room and then watching Dustin's fish tanks. He went and saw that guy in the AGA. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. Like Starbuck, I think was his last name. But he was breeding guppies. I've just been starstruck into, I want to get back to my roots and breed. But when it comes to breeding, there's a few simple things that you really got to hone in on. So the number one principle is, how many people am I alienating by breeding this fish? So the minute you're breeding a big aggressive fish, people that don't like fighting won't buy it. If you breed a fish that's big, you have to have a big tank for it. So if we start thinking of common denominators, if I breed a guppy could probably live in a 5-gallon and up, right? If I breed a platy and it's going to get 4 inches, 3.5, 4 inches, I would say the minimum's a 20-gallon at least. The other things the general public they like colorful, right? So like the Livebearer Mollies that I have in my fish room and the Liberty Mollies, from a Livebearer standpoint, I love them. From a general public standpoint, they wonder why they'd even be in my store. They're like, they're not even red, they're not blue, they have no color. Why would you want these? Because they're rare and they're cool. Yeah, I'll take the colorful ones. So you want things that are super duper colorful. You want things that stay small. You also want things that can be sold for cheap. If you can sell a $4 guppy 100 times a day, it's way easier to do that than it is to sell one guppy for $400. You might, not do that all week long, and yet you could sell 100 guppies a day. So you want cheap, you want colorful, you want small, you want to think of all, like non-aggressive, that helps. I used to make checklists of traits that I thought were really good as a selling fish, and I would make my list of ideas of what I wanted to breed, and then I would cross-reference it with the list. So, for instance, like with Livebearers, even if I knew I was doing guppies, I would not do albino guppies. In general, albino guppies are less hardy than a normal guppy, which in a long string of events means that you'll sell less fish. Like, oh, well, I bought albino bluegrass guppies from the fish store. The fish store bought them from me. And if they're dying at the customer, the fish store is going, oh, I had to give money back. Oh, maybe I won't buy as many of those from Corey. But if I bred a normal bluegrass guppy that wasn't albino and it lives for the customer, they'll keep selling. So you got to kind of get really far into it. And, in the Breeding for Profit series, everyone has to be happy. Customer has to be happy. Store has to be happy. They made money. They didn't lose fish. And the breeder has to be happy. He made money. If all 3 people are happy, that system works over and over and over and over and over again. If any one of those parties is not happy, the system breaks down. If the middle guy, the store, is not happy, the customer is not going to get any, and you're not going to sell any. If the customer is not happy because they're dying, the store is not going to be happy, you're not going to sell any. If you're not happy because you're not making any money, you're not going to sell any to the store, and the customer won't be able to get any. So you got to make sure that everyone's winning on every level to make that work. Side rant, but it just, with Livebearers, typically people get too many Livebearers. So when would interbreeding become a problem with Livebearers? As long as you're removing fish that are actually deformed or have something wrong with them, the answer is almost never. Like, there's a lot of species in the Texas Stock Center and stuff like that that have been breeding for 50 years straight with the same genetics, not having any problems. So most likely in your own breeding stock, unless you let something breed willingly that's defective, you won't run into that problem. And that's how we invented balloon fish, right? Came out with a crooked spine. Someone eventually goes, hey, that looks cool. We develop it, and there it's a thing. Let's see here. I just hopped on the stream. I only have one platy in my 20-gallon tank with a few guppies. Do I need to get another platy? So my advice would be, if you're going to get more platies, get 2 more. And you want to make sure you have like a male to 2 girls. If you have 1 girl already, you could add a male and a girl. If you don't want them to breed and she's not already pregnant, you could keep just her / get 1 more female. But a lot of times, Livebearers will harass their own species. Even 2 females will be a little confrontational with each other. But I do like to live by the rule, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, if that platy looks like it's loving life and there's no problem with the guppies, interacting with them at all, like, it probably is okay. But if you're sitting there going, oh man, I want platy babies so bad, and you're not happy, well then maybe you should add some and you'd enjoy it, I bet. Jessica Day says, hey Corey, I've tried with guppies. I currently have 1 left. Is there a quality difference in guppies? Is it because they're so easy to breed that the quality of guppies can vary? So there are quality differences for sure, right? But I don't think it's your average person, which I'm going to say you're the average person. You're not going to have bad luck because of the quality of the guppy, like the genes. You're going to have bad luck probably because of the way they were taken care of. Either A, they were raised in brackish water. B, they lived in bad conditions at a wholesaler or the store. C, they pick up a lot of diseases. With those big tails, they brush up against stuff. They're overcrowded, things like that. So a lot of times you can improve your odds by either A, buying from a breeder that's well known, or quarantining really well, like putting a lot of meds through, making sure they're really clean, making sure you're getting from a source that wasn't super duper hard water, or making sure your water is super duper hard. I would say in general, guppies, here's the problem. Guppies, oh man, I could talk for years about guppies because I love guppies. And I've been a part of a lot of discussions and groups and things like that. And, like to educate the public. Guppies used to be really, really, really hardy. Like, really hardy. Now, they're fragile. And so here's what happened, right? If you rewind to like the 70s, guppies were all the rage, right? They're like, oh man, guppies are awesome. Lots of places had lots of strains of them. We didn't have as many as we do now, but guppies were like a thing. Like right now, we have African cichlids and planet tanks, and if you have those, you're cool. Back then, guppy tanks were the cool thing, right? So there's lots of people working with them. People were building their name, like, oh, you have a Corey blue guppy? Oh my God, those things are amazing. He's been working on those for years, right? Now we don't have that. We have big farms churning out strains. There might be 50 different types of guppies that hit the market every year. We also have the technology that a lot of guppies have never seen bacteria before. We can do 100% water changes. We can run UV sterilizer. We run without gravel. We run, in a continent where it's always 80 degrees. So they've never been subjected to anything colder. So what comes out of, the factory, so to speak, is a very nice looking guppy that's never been experienced to real life, basically. And so when you take that and you put it into your home aquarium and it hits real life, it's in for a wake-up call of like, oh, I've never seen bacteria and parasites before. And oh god, I have to live with other guppies, and oh geez, there's an angelfish, what is this? But back in the day when you were making your name, Corey's Guppies are the best, you'd make a color, it'd be amazing, then you'd give it ick intentionally, watch 98% of them die. The ones that didn't die are now resistant to ick. You'd raise them up, you'd give them velvet, then you'd let them die down again, then you'd raise those ones up, so you'd get a guppy that could shrug off most diseases. You would do it with temperature. Most guppies back then weren't even heated, you know, and now we find a lot of guppies fall apart if they're not kept warm because they're being bred in climates around the world that are very warm. So, is there quality differences? Yes. If you can find, for instance, you know, an old guy in his basement that has guppies and he doesn't use a heater and he never cleans his tanks, that would be so easy for you to keep going, you know. So look for that, you know. And that's the thing is, like, if you could find the store, like, go find a local store that has like the worst looking tanks ever, but the guppies like have fry in the tank and stuff like that, and go, hey, I want to buy those fry. I'll give you $1 a piece for these tiny little babies. Go buy like 10 of those, and you'll have way better odds, because chances are, if they were able to breed and start having babies raised, no matter how bad it looks or how bad the reputation of the store is, those babies are going to do a lot better. Plus, there's some rules to go along with that, like, once a fish has been in your water for 2 generations, it's actually adapted to it. So if you buy a fish, it has babies, and its babies has babies, those babies love your water. So you can hedge your bets a little bit that way. Let's see here. Where should my price be for selling albino kohaku swordtails? Whatever someone's willing to pay. You know, you could set them at $100, and if no one buys them, you're not really selling them at $100. That being said, get while the getting's good. If you can get $2 a piece for them, take it, because next week, you know, one of the farms I order from might list them at 50 cents, and now I'm buying at 50 cents, and you'll never sell one at $1 ever again. You know, I would say whatever a fair price between you and the buyer is the correct price. If a store says, I can only sell them for $3, and you got to sell them to him for $1, but he sells a lot of them, and you make money at selling them at $1, that sounds like a great thing. You know, but if it costs you $2 to make them, you're selling for $1, that doesn't work. So you got to find out, you know, most people don't know how much it costs them to make a fish. They have no idea. And that's part of running a business. You got to know how much it takes you to make a product before you know what you're going to sell it for. Let's see. Can you post a video sometime of platies that are pregnant and show the people what they're supposed to look like? My wife has some. Yeah, I probably could. I need to pick up a male, but in general, they're just going to look enlarged, and livebearers are basically always pregnant. You know, I think what you're asking for is actually, can you show one that's about to give birth, you know, and they'll be really huge, and I could do that. I might even have some footage of that. I have to go look through my videos to find it, but I know there's got to be some really pregnant females. If you look in the older videos, like the fish room updates, maybe even before that, yeah, before I had the fish room, I had some real nice ones. Are true freshwater swordtails available from Greg Sage? Yeah, all his are true freshwater. Are his ones without platy genetics in them? Yeah, he has. So he's got Alvarezi, he's got Maye, he's got Montezumas, the Tapajos. Or not Tapajos, yeah, Tapajo, Rio, something. He's got a few, like, actual pure strains, and none of them have been crossed with the platy to increase color. In fact, I don't even think Greg Sage has a platy at all in his in his fish room. And the cool thing is, like, his Maiai that have the big dorsal fins, that's a different hyphen gene than I can never remember her name, than the original woman in the 50s that made the first hyphen gene. I really got to remember that. But that's kind of cool. And his albino Alvarezi he developed himself too, so it'll be completely different strains around than what are normally on the market. Lucas Alexander says, I'm a new tanker. This live stream is helping a ton. Well, good. That's the goal. Hopefully, is that, you know, answering the question, having a good time, and you know, hanging out. Let's see here. I'm going to start opening up to any type of questions. I'll still take Livebearer questions too. But I want to start answering some other questions as well. What are an average price you buy guppies wholesale? Really depends on the quality. I would say the cheapest you'll ever find probably is feeder guppies at 10 cents. And then some wholesale guppies are $30, $40, $50 a pair. So there's a whole gamut there. I would say most places are paying, $1.50 or less for guppies, depending on where they're coming from. And the price you pay doesn't dictate the quality, by the way. A lot of people think that, but sometimes you're just paying more or you're getting cheap price on really good fish. Are there any problems crossbreeding Livebearers? Not much more than anything else. I mean, if you didn't want them to be crossbred, then that's a problem. But, most people understand that most guppies are kind of crossed and endlers have been crossed, and like colorful swordtails, for instance, they got all their color from Platies. Lily Puppy says, Corey, I have a question. What are the best 7 fish to put in a 10-gallon tank with a betta? Probably things like green neon tetras, corridoras, autosynclus, stuff like that. What does true freshwater mean? Basically that means that it's a fish that wants to live its entire life in like tap water or fresh water. So it means it doesn't want to be in salt water and it doesn't want to be in brackish. So where like a river runs into the ocean, there's going to be an area where it's like half salt, half freshwater mixed up. And there are fish that can go between all those. Like let's say salmon can do that. And let's say some puffer fish can do that. And flounders and things like that. And there are some platies and mollies and swordtails that can do that. But what people are asking is, are they true freshwater? And yes, most all are going to be actual true freshwater. What's the best type of breeding tank? Typically it's going to be something with a lot of footprint or a lot of surface area. So something that's taller is not going to be as good as somewhere that's wider. Epsom salt will hurt your fish. Use API freshwater aquarium salt. I have a feeling that's talking to someone else, but that's not a true statement. Epsom salt is magnesium. Magnesium is one of the essential things that most fish need to live. Anything is toxic in elevated levels, but I would say, depending on your water structure, what comes in your tap water naturally, adding some Epsom salt could be very helpful. You use it if you need to kind of get some fish moving. It's a diuretic. But if the question, I don't know what the original question was, if it was like, how do I treat a bacterial infection? Yes, you would want to use aquarium salt for that, not an Epsom salt, but, yeah. Use Epsom salt on planted tanks? Yeah, exactly. It's a nutrient that plants need to grow, that type of thing. Have I ever had a figure 8 puffer? I haven't in my personal collection. At the stores and stuff, they've come in before, but any possible tank mates, they're pretty aggressive, so you might be able to get away with things like zebra danios and fast things, but really it should be in brackish, and those aren't going to thrive in brackish. So guppies with turtles or food? Well, most of the time, yeah, but I have guppies living with my musk turtles for now. Is it easier or harder to develop platy strains compared to guppies? I don't know. I feel like it's about the same. Yeah, I don't see that. I mean, if you ask me if swordtails were harder, I'd say swordtails are harder to do. Hey Corey, could you talk about converting mollies to saltwater? So I've tried it a few times. I've had moderate success with it. There's some people that say you can just take a molly and throw it straight into salt water and it'll do fine. There's other people that say acclimate them over the course of weeks and they'll do fine. I've tried both methods, had about the same luck with both methods. I think the difference is, and I talked about this in a live stream maybe last week or the week before. I think it's mollies can't handle the flow that we typically run in saltwater. I think that's the problem. So, or guppies, I think is what I was talking about last time. But we usually run all this. Let me back up 2 steps. So the reason why people want to add mollies to a saltwater tank typically is mollies are good algae eaters, and there's not a lot of algae eaters in the saltwater world, right? And so mollies are seen as cheap and relatively easy to care for and stuff like that. So they're good at eating hair algae. And if you can put them into the saltwater tank, they'll eat that hair algae. Typically, they're wanting to do this in the reef tanks, so with all the corals and stuff. But those tanks have lots of flow, all these power heads and stuff moving the water around. And I think the problem is not a lot of food goes into saltwater tanks because they're trying to, one, get rid of phosphates, which is causing the hair algae / reefs typically can't handle as much of a bioload. And 2, they have to swim against these currents all the time, and I think they actually just wear themselves out. So I think the hardest part is keeping them from wearing out. I bet if I kept like a 20-gallon tank with mollies in it, and every week I changed 10% salt water into the tank, by the time it was 100% salt water, and if I was just using a sponge filter, they'd still be thriving. But you take that same tank and you put a couple of power heads in it, and it's like a whirlwind or a tornado in there like it normally would be in a reef tank, I don't think they do well at all. Let's see. How do guppies mate? Male guppies mate with females? Is it an augmented fin or a separate organ? It's called a gonopodium, and it's a it's a livebearer reproductive organ, just like humans would have, that type of thing, and it's used to impregnate a female. Did I answer the question about balloon mollies or platies? I haven't. I didn't see it yet. So if I see it, I'll answer it though. Do I plan to start selling oddballs? Probably not. I mean, I already do, but I don't have a plan starting to sell more. Like, oddballs are oddballs for a reason. Why are they odd? Because no one buys them. That's the reality. I run a store to make money, to do good things with that money, and so selling oddballs typically doesn't further that. Hi Corey, I currently have 3 red hook silver dollars and 2 Chinese alligators and a 20 long. What would a good sized tank to fully grow them out? I feel like a 75 gallon. I mean, bigger is always going to be better. You could maybe make a case of a 75 or a 55 is okay. Really, I would love, I wish they still made the 60-gallon longs that were a 55 stretched out. Or maybe they're 75 longs. They were a 6-foot long, 55-gallon. That was pretty cool. They don't make them anymore, though. But, red hook silver dollar, by the time it gets this big, is pretty decent size. So, do I just put the fish in a small container with salt until it becomes relieved? If we're talking about, an Epsom salt bath, typically you just dose the aquarium. Let's see here. Thanks for hanging out, Laura. I appreciate you modding for me. Ever attempted the 4-eyed fish? I have never attempted the anableps yet. It's still... So that's... People ask me all the time, where are my holy grail fish and stuff like that? That's still one on my list that I haven't done. I still want to do a giant paludarium or vivarium with the 4-eyed fish, anableps, and breed them. I've had a couple of chances to get them. But when I talk to the wholesalers specifically, they're like, well, they're a little dicey. We're not going to guarantee them or anything like that. And usually when a wholesaler's telling you that, they're telling you look, if you want to throw your money away, go ahead and send it, but they're not going to really make it. And I always see them on the list. And really, to do this fish right, I should have a 125 setup that's already brackish water, thriving. And then one day, oh, sweet, anableps are on the list. I should order those. I'm totally ready for it. But instead, it's oh, my God, anableps are there. Can I get a tank set up by Tuesday when they'll be here? Probably not. And I just know that's going to be a bad scenario. Are tetras easy to mate? Maybe. They're not easy to raise up, though. If you want info on how to breed tetras... I would go to Ted Judy's channel. He's been doing some work with showing people how to breed tetras and stuff like that. What do I think of instant baby brine for guppy fry? I think it's pretty decent. I like frozen a lot too, but that reminds me, if Kaylee, if you're watching this, remind me to track down instant baby brine, because I know a couple people want to buy it from us off the website, and so I want to look into getting that on there. Average lifespan on guppies, it depends on the temperature. I would say anywhere from 18 months to 3 years. The hotter you keep it, the shorter they live typically. Let's see here. Got a new canister filter. Flow rate seemed a little high for the Guppies and Mollies. Would a spray bar be better to quiet down the flow? If so, widthwise or lengthwise? Widthwise or lengthwise? The longer the bar is, basically the more holes you get to put in, the less flow from each hole. So lengthwise would lessen that flow more for you. Are dwarf puffers livebearers? They are not. They're typically egg scatterers. Anyone know how to breed Celestial Pearl Danios? There's a couple of ways. The ways that most home aquarists agree to be the best way is take a 20 long, divide it in half, keep Java moss on both sides. You keep your adults on one side, let them breed for, I think it's like 10 days, net out the adults, put them on the other side. Then you can let the eggs hatch out, and they'll turn to fry. You can scoop them out into a fry rearing tank. And then after they've been on this side for 10 days, go ahead and swap them back over, and you keep moving the adults. And they don't have a lot of eggs at once. That's what makes the Celestial Pearl Danio more expensive than a lot of other fish. But they are a cool fish for sure. How do you identify internal parasites? Typically, you would do a fecal smear. So you get a microscope, you take their poop, you put it in a slide, you look at it, and you compare it to internal parasites from books and things like that. Let's see here. Honolulu Tita. Should I use easy carbon on a regular basis as a prophylactic against algae? And does it typically affect Bucephalandra plants? I increase easy green, but it's still a bit yellow. Other plants are thriving now. So the answer to that, Honolulu Tita, is I don't have enough experience with Bucephalandras to know how well it works with easy carbon. In general, at the store and at home, I don't use any easy carbon because I'm not afraid of algae, and if I was having a hair algae problem, I'd rather use like 50 Amano shrimp, or I'd rather use animals that I enjoy keeping anyway to combat it than the chemical. I have used it in the past to get rid of algae, but I just don't use it all the time. And to go back to my original point is, I've probably only been playing with Bucephalandras for maybe 2 years now, and I don't think I've been in many situations where I've used a lot of easy carbon with it. So I don't want to give you advice like, yeah, it totally affects it or it doesn't, because I haven't played with it enough. And there's probably some people out there, like maybe Steamfod Aquatics or something like that. There's got to be people that are already dosing it and they go, yes, it works fine, or oh, I'm having problems, but I just don't have that data because I haven't done it myself. Let's see here. 48 Tomorrow says, hi Corey, are you aware of wonder shells? And if so, are they useful for mineralizing a tank that has low GH and stabilizing the pH and redox potential? So I am aware of them because I sell them on my website. We sell hundreds and hundreds every week between the website and my store, retail store. They are good at adding minerals to the water. They're not that good at stabilizing pH, and they do help with the redox potential. But mostly they're mostly calcium and a few other trace elements. But as far as like changing your alkalinity buffer, your KH, they don't really do that. So I typically use crushed coral to stabilize pH. But, they are great for adding minerals. And in fact, if you're having troubles with your guppies, adding something like wonder shells and stuff might make the difference. If you already have crazy hard water, it probably won't help you. But a lot of people I'm finding that are struggling just don't have that hardness they want. What veggies do guppies love to eat? I don't know that they do. I mean, mostly if I was gonna have to pick something, maybe some spirulina and eating a little bit of natural algae, they do okay with like the Sarah Onip tabs that have a spirulina in them. Thoughts on balloon mollies and balloon platies? What are the crazy fish? And what are crazy fish? Balloon mollies and balloon platies, I actually like them. In terms of like looking at them, I think they're great. I find balloon mollies to be a lot less aggressive than normal mollies. And balloon platies or teacup platies, stuff like that. I have some in my fish room right now. I think they're amazing. And you'll see it in one of the videos coming up, but they're only this big and they're already having babies, which is amazing. It's almost like a nanofish. Now, I realize they have some spinal deformities and things like that, but I personally haven't noticed like, oh man, they don't live as long, or oh, they're having any problems. So, you know, I'm okay with it. That's my honest opinion there. And the crazy fish, I forget what they call it, but isn't it like starts with a B or something like that? I'd have to Google it. Because whatever I say is gonna be wrong, and then everyone's gonna correct me on it. So I'll just let me see if I can Google it real quick. And this is gonna be one of the last few questions here. Let's see if I can. Nope. It's coming up with like crazy fish tanks and stuff like that. It's not. I have to look it up. It shows up on wholesale lists, and when I look it up, it you know, I want to say it's like the toadfish. It's actually brackish, but I'd have to look it up more to be honest. Do I have any videos to show how acidic rocks or pebbles are? I don't have that video, no. Heterander formosa, the dwarf livebearer. I've got those in my fish room. I almost ordered the golden form the other day. Best live, frozen, or dry foods? I mean, it would be best if you could feed them like live baby brine like 5 times a week and flake food like twice a week, but use what you got. If you have a live Daphnia culture, great. If you only have frozen foods like Cyclops and Daphnia and stuff like that, that's great too. And if you only have dry food, that'll work as well. That's the great thing about livebearers is they'll pretty much eat anything. So, let's see. We're running a little bit long here because I do want to shoot some more videos and stuff tonight. Don't forget Wood and Rock, probably for a few more hours, 20% off. So if you guys want to support me, go ahead and buy some of that stuff. Crazy Fish is Butis or Butis? Yeah, that's right. I knew it started with a B, but isn't it like Butis or something like that? I think it's the same name twice. Anyway. Also, we have the Sarah Onop tabs, both spirulina and normal, 14% off. First time I've ever really had them on a discount, and there's limited quantities. I want to say there's like 24 of each or something like that. That's what I can negotiate. So buy them up, and you know you've seen them eat there, and yeah. Oh, we're demanding the taco hat. Maybe I end this in style as your fearless taco eating leader. Let's see here. Can you feed your fish tacos? I bet you can, actually. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm confident I could. And the next question usually is, Corey, would you eat fish tacos? Oh, yes. I love eating fish. Will large ghost shrimp eat Endler fry? They could. I don't know if they will. If they're hungry, they will, for sure. Let's see here. What are the chances of Molly Guppy fry surviving? Those crosses can survive. They just are sterile once they're born is the problem. Pray for Mojo says, Flourish Advance. Corey, does it work? It does. It does. It helps with root growth. And that's so on a new planet tank, that helps the most. Yeah, I've done some testing with it, and I've had a few customers that absolutely love it. I haven't done it, I used it for 5 months, 5 years straight on 50 different tanks or anything like that. But, yeah. Let's see here. I think that's it. I think that's it, So what do we want? Put down in the comments what you guys want to talk about next week. And maybe we'll get some, we'll take all these ideas, and I want to do another 8-hour live stream on Christmas too. So if you guys are up for that, let me know if you're up for that. Yeah, I think that's it. I got lots of work to do. I know I've got to film a couple of videos. I want to install a UV sterilizer, a bigger UV sterilizer on the wife's tank. I might do that right after this. So, all right, let me find the right things to close this out. So thanks for hanging out, guys. hope to see you, Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday will be another video. So Wednesday, Friday, Sundays, and the live stream on Sundays. If you have more questions, ask in the comments. I'll answer them as I can. You guys know I'm pretty quick about that. And thanks for all the stuff you guys order and all the support you give us. And we hope to continue serving you. So thanks for hanging out, guys. And we'll see you next time.